girlfriend of a Boston police officer whose body was found
in the murder trial of Karen Reed after the jury said it was unable to
they
reach
will
a
retry
verdict.
Karen Reed
is
after a
accused
judge declared a
Hello and welcome back to the alternate podcast where we are breaking down the Karen Reed trial day by day. Today is Friday, April 25th, and it is the fourth day of testimony. I am Tabitha, your co-host, and the one that took the seat in the jury box today. So let's get into what the jury heard. As the jurors were seated today, they were told that they were going on a field trip. Well, this field trip we knew was going to take us to 34 Fairview Road. The jurors were instructed not to take this encounter as testimony, but just to observe and see to get a more clear picture and understanding of the night in question. Both attorneys got to present a statement to the jury before they left on this field trip. Does anybody else feel like it's like third grade? Going on a field trip? Okay. Anyways, Hank Brennan, he is the lead prosecutor, and he came up and instructed the jury to make sure that they observed the Lexus and where it was located. They actually brought Karen's vehicle to 34 Fairview Road. That's going to be interesting. I actually wish I was there. He asked them to pay attention to the front yard of the home, the left side of the home, the Lexus outside the home, the flagpole, and the fire hydrant. He asked them also to look at those vantage points to get kind of a perspective of how things were laid out. Another thing he noted was to think about the weather that night. Then defense attorney David Yannetti asked the jurors to pay attention to the second floor window of the home, the front doors, the driveway, the street, the front lawn, and the flagpole. He also asked them to take a close look at the Lexus, standing next to it and kind of sizing it up. It was pretty short and brief, and then all the jurors piled in to head to 34 Fairview Road. The viewing was really short, less than an hour, so not a long field trip. I'm thinking, hey, can we stop at Starbucks on the way back? Just saying. All right, back in the courtroom, let's be serious now. By 11:15, the first witness was called to the stand for the day. This was Dr. Garrey Faller. He's a pathologist at the Good Samaritan Hospital in Brockton. Assistant DA Adam Lally started with questioning, which basically established Dr. Faller's credibility, where he went to medical school, how long he had been at the hospital, you get it. Dr. Faller seemed very credible. He graduated medical school in the early 90s. He had been a doctor at Good Samaritan for many, many years. This guy, he seemed like a stand-up guy, in my opinion. The DA went over asking more questions about phlebotomy or a phlebotomist. That's the person that like draws your blood when you go to the hospital. He asked about what kind of education a phlebotomist needs, and actually, you don't need a lot, just a high school diploma, and then you can actually learn on the job. Then they got into the process of drawing blood for the sake of alcohol testing, and now this is where it gets interesting. Dr. Faller is shown a report from the morning of January 29th, 2022. This is Karen Reed's blood report. Dr. Faller said that she had 93 milligrams per deciliter of alcohol in her blood at just after 9 a.m. when they drew her blood. Now, to put that into layman's terms, that is a 0.093, and you know the DUI limit, the legal limit, is a 0.08. So that is well over the legal limit of alcohol in your blood. Now, on cross-examination by defense attorney Elizabeth Little, this is the first we've heard of her so far, she questioned Dr. Faller about the methodology used for this BAC test. She highlighted that the hospital tests analyze serum rather than the whole blood, which is the standard testing in forensics, which is the law, like say you were in a DUI situation. Dr. Faller acknowledged that there is a difference, but maintained that both the hospital testing and the forensic testing methods are very reliable and that his hospital tests were super reliable. She kept repeating and digging into the fact that these two methods are very different and use different parts of the blood. And one is a quick response, that one being from the hospital, and the forensic tests take longer to establish results. Maybe kind of insinuating that the longer tests are more reliable? I'm not sure. The hospital version is minutes and the forensics is hours. Additionally, Little inquired whether Dr. Faller considered Reed's medical condition, such as the fact that she had anemia and multiple sclerosis, which could possibly affect alcohol testing. She brought up this study that was like 600 patients from the Netherlands that all had MS, whose results were elevated from having MS, I guess. Dr. Faller was familiar with the study. However, he noted that the testing equipment would flag any anomalies, and in Karen's case, it just didn't. There were no such flags. He did respond, however, that he didn't take any of these medical conditions into account, but did not think that it would change the metric. Next up was Canton firefighter paramedic Jason Becker. Becker was on the ambulance that was called in for the Section 12. You remember, the emergency restraint and hospitalization of someone who's in a psychiatric or emotional distress. Remember, that was Karen that early morning. He was partnered with Canton firefighter paramedic Daniel Whitley, who I talked about last time you guys heard my voice, and testified earlier this week, I think on day 2. Becker was asked about his education, his training as a firefighter, paramedic, EMT, which he responded that he had been an EMT since he was 21. Then he became a paramedic, I think within like 5 years after that, then on to a firefighter. He was asked about his conversation he had with Karen in the back of the ambulance. He said, in quotes, "The last conversation she had with her husband at the time was an argument. I didn't feel like it was my role to find out the details of what was said, but that's what she said to me." Now, end quote. Side note, real quick. Last time I was telling you about paramedic Whitley calling John her husband too. We're told at some point in this testimony that she was calling John the husband because that's the only way you can get in to see somebody in a critical care situation. And maybe Karen thought about that before getting into the ambulance, and that's why she was calling the husband. His testimony was pretty short. I think prosecution really wanted to state that Karen told him her last words to John were ones of anger and argument. Upon cross-examination, defense asked Becker if he knew that the last words that Reed spoke to O'Keefe were left on voicemails. He said he did not, he was not aware, and did not question her further about her last words. Well, then they asked if Karen kept showing him her phone, which he said yes, but he didn't want to get into her business, so he didn't actually look at the phone, although Karen kept trying to show him. Defense also questioned him more about Karen's mental state and if he thought that she was going to harm herself. He said no, he did not believe so, as Karen explained why she said she wanted to kill herself in the car with Carrie to him, so he just thought she was in a traumatic situation, but also didn't have the authority to make any medical decisions and had to take her to the hospital. Then on redirect, Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan asked Becker if Reed indicated that her last words to O'Keefe were via voicemail, and that's when Becker responded she did not specify in detail. At that point, prosecution had 6 minutes to bring another witness to the stand, and Judge Cannoni just said no. There wasn't enough time, and so they would rest for the day. So it was really, really a short testimony day. She mentioned Monday would also be a short testimony day, as the jury would have a half day. The attorneys needed to get some things done so the trial could be more streamlined. So, folks, according to Judge Cannoni, this trial is going to be a 6-week trial. Now, we're not going to hold her feet to the fire here because we really just do not know how long this is going to take. But what I do know is we're getting there. And us alternates will be here every single day to break it down for you. So have yourselves a lovely little weekend. Don't forget to listen to our bonus content. You can find our bonuses on Apple, hopefully on Spotify. We're linking that up, and patreon.com/thealternate. This is where we talk about our opinions and really get into a discussion. I think you guys are going to like it. We will be back next week for week 2. And as always, this is The Alternate inside America's biggest trials, and I am your co-host, Tabitha. P.S. Do not forget to follow us on all social media platforms at The Alternate Pod, and please give us a rating and review wherever you listen. Thank you.